Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It is Tuesday, May 27th, 2025, and on Tuesdays we talk about music and the arts. So the single most pervasive or dominant theme in music, lyrically speaking, is love. It's estimated that there have been more than 100 million love songs that have been recorded, but who knows exactly? What we do know, though, is that research has actually studied songs and the compositions and the lyrics, etc., since the 1960s. And the research has demonstrated that almost 2/3 of the songs that have been recorded since the 1960s deal with love in some way or another, whether most prominently, of course, in talking about relationships, to any number of heartfelt expressions of care and concern, love of animals or nature, life in general, you name it. So it's a prominent, or the single most prominent theme, if you will. And so when I say heartfelt expressions, yes, that literally includes the ways in which we talk about the heart in song, or songs from the heart, if you will. I still remember vividly seeing E.T. when it came out back in the early 1980s, and then listening to the song that Neil Diamond composed, or that was inspired by the movie. You remember that one, titled Heartlight? The song actually climbed to number 5 on the U.S. Hot 100 chart and actually hit number 1 on both the Canadian and the U.S. Adult Contemporary charts back in 1982. And of course, there are too many songs about love in general, or songs with love in the title, to ever be ranked accurately. Or I don't know how you would actually end up ranking them in terms of favorite songs, or, how do you compare them musically with one another and so on. There's so much variation. Especially with the term love in the song, right? I mean, everything from, I'm thinking when I was a kid, I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family, to One Love by Bob Marley. That was one of our 3 featured songs at our wedding, One Love. Anyway, so I decided, though, to look up the performances by one metric of popularity, and that is the Billboard rankings. And they actually have this, the top 50 ranked songs that have the word love in the title, or lover, or loving, variation thereof. And so when I say they had the top 50 of all time, I'm talking about their chart performances based on the Billboard Hot 100, which dates back to its inception on August 4th, 1958, and then right on down through today. So they've ranked each of the different songs based on an inverse point system, with weeks at number 1, of course, earning the greatest value, and that week if you're still on the chart, but you're at number 2 or number 5 or number 25, whatever, the lower you go, of course, you earn fewer points. But as long as you're on the charts, you're earning points. So, and as I say, they've published the top 50. And at number 50, just FYI, I'm not going to go through all 50 of them, but there's Minnie Riperton's. You remember her song, Lovin' You? Came out in 1975. Famous for her use of the whistle register. And she's also, by the way, if you don't know this already, she's the mother of the famous comedian, actress Maya Rudolph. And in that song, at the end of that song, I don't know if you've listened that closely, but she's actually singing Maya, 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 and it's part of the outro. Okay, so anyway, that comes in at number 50 of top-ranked songs based on Billboard charting all time. The Beatles, by the way, their highest rank in these 50s is only number 32, with She Loves You, back in 1964. It hit number 1 for a couple of weeks. Of course, it was competing with a bunch of other Beatles songs then as well. And then, if just again, a couple of random notes, you have Eminem and Rihanna's Love the Way You Lie. That placed 23rd all time after 7 weeks at number 1 back in 2010. I'm sure many of you remember that one. Queen, the best that they did, they peaked at number 14 with their song Crazy Little Thing Called Love from 1980. Okay, and then the top 5. I'm going to give you the top 5, and I'm going to give you the artist and see if you can guess the song. I'll give you just a split second there to see if you can guess. So at number 5 is a song by Wings. Any idea what that might be? Silly Love Songs. So that was in the top spot for 5 weeks back in 76, but it stayed in the charts or on the charts seemingly forever. Number 4 is by Rihanna. She's back again. What do you think it was? Well, if I told you who it was featuring, I'd give it away. So it's featuring Calvin Harris, and so that was "We Found Love," and that stayed at number 1 for an incredible 11 weeks back in 2011. All right, number 3 is from my featured group from last week, the Bee Gees. What's the number 3 song with love in the title? If you guessed How Deep Is Your Love from 1977, you'd be correct. It was actually only number 1 for 3 weeks, but again, it seemed to stay on the charts for an incredible number of weeks. Number 2, Boys to Men. Can you guess? Yes, I'll Make Love to You. That's the title of the song. Don't go crazy. And by the way, that was at the number 1 spot for an incredible 14 weeks. And that's back in 1994. Number 1, this may surprise you. Well, it surprised me. Diana Ross. Actually a duet with Lionel Richie. Yes, Endless Love from 1981. Which stayed atop the charts for 9 weeks back in 1981, but then it continued again to stick around longer than almost any other song. Definitely not my personal favorite love song, but I got to give the duo their props. They ended up number 1 on this all-time list. Okay. In addition, since the Dr. J vlog theme this week is the heart, I thought I'd share with you 135 songs that contain the word heart in the title. So see how many of these you know, and perhaps more importantly, how many of them you actually really love. Okay, I'll go through them, and then I'll do this very quickly, by the way. And then I'll share with you my personal 5 favorites from all of these. All right, we'll start with Heart of Gold by Neil Young, Two of Hearts by Stacy Q, Hungry Heart by Bruce Springsteen, Can You Hear My Heartbeat by Herman's Hermits, The Heart of Rock and Roll, Huey Lewis and the News, Total Eclipse of the Heart, Bonnie Tyler, Wholehearted by Extreme, Don't Break the Heart That Loves You, Connie Francis, Don't Funk With My Heart by Black Eyed Peas, Heart and Soul by T. Powell, Tell It to My Heart by Taylor Dane, who also had With Every Beat of My Heart, again, Taylor Dane. Groove is in the Heart by D-Light, Heart of Glass by Blondie, Pretty Heart by Parker McCullum, Open Your Heart by Madonna, Stereo Hearts, Gym Class Heroes, Burning Heart by Survivor, Queen of Hearts, Juice Newton, Heartless, Kanye West, Break Your Heart by Tayo Cruz featuring Ludacris, I Don't Have the Heart, James Ingram, Two Hearts Beat as One, U2, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart by the Bee Gees, Harden My Heart by Quarter Flash. I saw them in concert do that, believe it or not. That's taking you back 4 decades, more than 4 decades. Owner of a Lonely Heart by Yes, Heartaches by The Number, Ray Price, Heart-Shaped Box by Nirvana, Don't Go Breaking My Heart, Elton John, Heartbreaker, Pat Benatar, Quit Playing Games with My Heart, Backstreet Boys, Put a Little Love in Your Heart, Annie Lennox and Al Green. Heartbreak Hotel, Elvis. My Paper Heart, The All American Rejects. Heart and Soul, Huey Lewis and the News. Your Cheatin' Heart by Hank Williams. Jealous Heart, Johnny Rodriguez. Zing With the Strings of My Heart by the Tramps. I Cross My Heart by George Strait. My First Broken Heart, Tracy Spencer. Foolish Heart by Steve Perry. Young at Heart, Frank Sinatra. Closer to the Heart by Rush. You're in My Heart, Rod Stewart. Tear in My Heart by 21 Pilots. Or Tear in My Heart, sorry. King of My Heart by Taylor Swift. Sixth Avenue Heartaches by the Wallflowers. Here Is My Heart by ICF Worship. Heart Full of Soul by the Yardbirds. Piece of My Heart, Janis Joplin. My Heart by Paramore. Achy Breaky Heart by Billy Ray Cyrus. Remember that one from the early 90s? Don't break my heart. By the way, his daughter shows up later in this list. Chrome-Plated Heart by Melissa Etheridge. Deep in the Heart of Texas by Perry Como. I Sleep on My Heart, Level 42. My Next Broken Heart, Brooks and Dunn. Your Home Is My Heart, Boys to Men. His Heart Beats by Andrew Peterson. Lord, I Give You My Heart by Hillsong. I Heart, ? By Taylor Swift. Beating Heart by Ellie Goulding. Heartbeat Song, Kelly Clarkson. Heartbreaker, Justin Bieber. My Heart Will Go On, Celine Dion. Heart Attack by Demi Lovato. Stab You in the Heart by Green Day. Open Your Heart by Madonna. Unbreak My Heart by Toni Braxton. Straight from the Heart, Bryan Adams. Hearts on Fire by Passenger. Nothing Breaks Like a Heart by Mark Ronson featuring Miley Cyrus. Me and My Broken Heart by Rixton. Happens to the Heart by Leonard Cohen. Where Does My Heart Beat Now by Celine Dion. Bonfire Heart, James Blunt. Heart Attack by Trey Songz. The Dead Heart, Midnight Oil. Heart Out by the 1975. The Heart From Your Hate by Trivium. Haunted Heart by Christina Aguilera. Heart's a Mess by Gautier. Heart by Pet Shop Boys. Boots Are Hearts by the Tragically Hip. Owner of a Lonely Heart by Yes. No Broken Hearts by B. Brexa featuring Nicki Minaj. Wild Heart by the Vamps. Try Sleeping with a Broken Heart by Alicia Keys. Hearts Don't Break Round Here by Ed Sheeran. Stop Dragging My Heart Around by Stevie Nicks. Two Hearts, Phil Collins. Who Owns My Heart? Miley Cyrus. There she is again. With a Song in My Heart, Doris Day. Heart Attack by Enrique Iglesias. Heart of Glass by Blondie. Break Your Heart by Little Mix. Take Me to Your Heart, Michael Learns to Rock. Heart Upon My Sleeve by Avicii. Broken Hearted by Carmen. Heart of Stone by the Rolling Stones. Wherever Is Your Heart by Brandy Carlisle. The Heart Wants What It Wants by Selena Gomez. Take Me Where Your Heart Is by Q. The Heart Part 5 by Kendrick Lamar. Don't Break My Heart by The Weeknd. Heart Attack by Wild Rivers. Never Knew a Heart Could Break Itself by Zach Hood. Heart on Fire by Eric Church. No Other Heart, Mac DeMarco. Heartache Tonight by the Eagles. Heart of the Matter by Don Henley, also formerly of the Eagles. Break My Heart by Dua Lipa. My Head of My Heart by Ava Max. Give Your Heart a Break by Demi Lovato. Heart on Ice by Rod Wave. Die From a Broken Heart by Maddie and Tay. No Such Thing as a Broken Heart by Old Dominion. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, The Beatles. Where Do Broken Hearts Go by Whitney Houston. Listen to Your Heart by Roxette. Bonfire Heart by James Blunt. I think I already mentioned that one. It's okay. Raining in My Heart by Buddy Holly. Tearing Up My Heart by NSYNC. Let Your Heart Dance by Secret Affair. Anyone Who Had a Heart by Dusty Springfield. Fortress Around Your Heart by Sting. Heart to Heart by Kenny Loggins, Heart Hotels by Dan Fogelberg, I'll Never Break Your Heart, Backstreet Boys, This Is How a Heart Breaks, Rob Thomas, Take These Chains From My Heart, Ray Charles, Mama's Broken Heart, Miranda Lambert, Cold, Cold Heart by Hank Williams, Season of My Heart by George Jones, Heart of a Woman, Summer Walker, and Heart of the Sunrise by Yes. All right, that's a lot of heart songs. And my 5 favorites from all of these. Coming in at number 5, Closer to the Heart by Rush. So that's my sort of metal-ish entry on the list. Yes, it beat out Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band. Yeah, I like that song. I really love that song, actually. And I got to see Rush live, so even better. At number 4, maybe an unusual pick, I have Stop Dragging My Heart Around by Stevie Nicks, and featuring, of course, Tom Petty as well. Love that tune. Another one that I love, number 3, Fortress Around Your Heart by Sting. Yes, from the mid-'80s. This is one that I just couldn't get enough of. When Sting went solo and he was doing some of that stuff in the 80s, I just really loved his work. And then at number 2, the timeless Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? Robin starts the song, he sings the first verse, just draws you in with that incredible melodic voice of his, so distinctive. You just know immediately that it's Robin Gibb. And then older brother Barry takes over the main lyrics, or the main, singing for the next verse, and actually for most of the rest of the song. But then they do these, they Robin and Barry and Morris, not Maurice. One of our careful viewers noted that it's Morris, not Maurice, because they're from England, of course. And they do these incredible harmonies on that particular song. I almost thought about choosing that one for my sort of tribute to the Bee Gees last week. But yeah, so definitely that one's, that's one of those songs I would definitely take with me to the deserted island if I, could only take, a limited number of songs. It wouldn't be my only choice, but if I could take maybe 10 songs, I'd probably keep that one. But then my number 1 song, with Heart in the title, is actually, again, maybe a little bit unusual for many of you, and you may not even know it. It's Heart Hotels by Dan Fogelberg, who just happens to be my all-time personal, or, my favorite popular musician, if you will, and the single greatest influence on my own musical style, if you will. And so the song was written back in 1970, or it was written actually much earlier, but it appeared on his 1979 album Phoenix, which actually spawned his single biggest hit, his highest ranking song, a love song titled Longer. I suspect many of you know that one. It's often played at weddings. Longer than, etc., etc. But I always preferred Heart Hotels, which was the only other single released off of Phoenix. And that deals with quite the opposite. It deals with this description and imagery of loneliness and of almost bordering on desperation. And again, it's almost the exact opposite theme of Longer. But really, to my ear, it's just a much richer song, melodically and instrumentally. And it has this really killer sax solo by the renowned session player Tom Scott, who's still around and just does incredible work. Okay, anyway, I'd love to do an analysis video at some point, but that's enough for today. So if you're inclined, please leave your top 5 songs with either love or heart in the title, or just your favorite, in the comments below. And of course, smash like and subscribe if you haven't already. Everyone's, of course, is going to be different, but just sharing your personal faves, you'll often inspire others, and certainly including myself, to either have a first listen, if I haven't heard it previously, or a closer listen. And that's what I love about music. I love getting people's recommendations. I love hearing their views, because, what are their preferences? What are their tastes? Why do they like this or love that? And so on. And then I just find that sort of feeds my own musical soul, and it broadens my palette. And I start listening, to other songs that I hadn't heard previously, or I listen to, as I say, maybe a song I'd heard previously, but maybe through a new set of ears, if you will. Okay. And I usually learn something new from everybody who shares their perspective in this regard. Okay, that's it for today. Until next time, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts. Notice the 2 key words there. And of course, dole out hugs in abundance. And hope to see you soon.